Well, hello and welcome to another video from the Computer Techie. And today we'll be looking at my whole server rack setup for my lab. So this is what I use to do all of my testing on, building machines, networking stuff, penetration testing, things like that. It's all done on these servers and all this networking equipment. So it is a total of a 42U server rack made by Cooper Beeline, and it's the Access series. So we'll start from the bottom, then work our way up to all the networking gear. So you need to ignore this one, this is just there for the sake of it. But we'll start off with the servers. So this one here is a Dell PowerEdge 2800. It's fairly old now. It's the first one that I bought for my whole server system. So this one is just used for storage now, as it's not powerful at all and just basically useless to me other than storage. So it's got 8 300 gig SAS 15K hard drives, and they're all in a RAID 5. So it's just important stuff is kept on that one and nothing else. It's hardly ever on, just purely because it's only got one single core processor and 2 gig of RAM. So it runs a Server 2012 like Essentials, and that's just there because it's lighter than Server 2008 or whatever so it's just used for storage really. So there's not that much about that one, but it's a fairly big server, and it's at the bottom because, well, if you pull all the other servers out, it acts kind of like a counterweight. So if you pull the other ones out, the rack doesn't fall over, which is always good. So next up we have this one. So this is a PowerEdge 850. This one is used to run 1 or 2 VMs, and they are for networking. So you have like a pfSense box and maybe a like a Viata or something. So it's only got a dual core Pentium processor in it and 4 gigs of RAM, but that's good enough for running network routing software on there or firewalls or something. So that's what that's used for. It's got the Dell Remote Access card in it, and it has 4 network ports. So that's what that's used for. And then we come to the slightly more powerful servers. So we have two PowerEdge 2950s, and they're all the 2nd gen servers, and these are used for virtual machine clusters. So what we do is we have either VMware or Hyper-V running on them, and then they're all connected together via gigabit Ethernet, or they are connected together by 4 gig fibre on a SAN switch. So these all have 73 gig 10K drives in them, for a total of, I think there's 6 in there. And that is just for the local storage for the server. So all the virtual machines are stored on these, so they're stored between the 3 servers, and they talk to each other over the 4 gig network. The reason I went with the 4 gig network was because of the amount of storage that was going between all the servers. There wasn't really enough bandwidth or speed really to be able to communicate between them all. And when you're doing penetration testing or DDoSing yourself, you kind of need that 4 gig speed to be able to test saturation points and things. So very, very useful thing to have more than a gig speed. So each one of these has the front bezel on them, and that's kind of what they look like without them on. And then we come up to a PowerEdge 1950. This again is used for the same thing, for VMs. So They have 2 drives in them, and this is the Gen 3 of the 1950s. So if you're incredibly lucky and you found some 8 gig sticks of DDR2 RAM, this will take up to 64 gigs of RAM, 2 core processors. So at the moment, this one have 32 gigs of DDR2 RAM. They all have 2 core processors, so a total of 8 cores on each server. They all have 4 gig network ports, so 2 locally on the server and then 2 on an expansion card, and then they all have one 4 gig network card in them as well, so they're used for the virtualization stuff. And then if we go up another one, we have a PowerEdge 2850. So this is just used for just putting operating systems on for no particular reason. So at the moment there's a version of Server 2012 on there. That was when it first came out, so just things get stuck on there. They've each got I think they're all 146 gig 15K drives, so it's used for a bit of storage as well sometimes. It will communicate between the other VMs for storage capability, really. Nothing special about that. It's got 8 gigs of DDR RAM and 2 dual core processors, I think. I don't entirely remember because I hardly use it. And then the last one is another PowerEdge 1950. Again, this one is used for virtualization, so 2 core processors, 32 gigs of RAM, and they all connect together. So that is kind of it really for the servers. They're all mounted on rails, so they easily just pull out like that, and so that's good whenever I want to take a network card out of them or something. They all just quite easily and happily pull out of their rails, and yeah, it's all good. They've got the cable management arms on the back, so they just pull out, really. It's very useful to have cable management arms because then your cables don't get stuck. So moving up, we have a bit of a gap, and you can see the power connections there. There's 2 power bars, so one power bar is for what most of everything is connected to, and the other one is just as for the second PSUs, really. And the only reason I had the second PSUs connected is because I'm sometimes press the wrong power switch on the wall, so I don't particularly want to always turn my servers off if I'm doing something important. So I generally turn both PSUs on, and the other PSUs are connected to somewhere else in the room, so I'm less likely to turn them off. You have absolutely no benefit as to having 2 power supplies connected on the servers, and it only adds an extra 1 or 2 watts worth of power usage. So it is purely for failover and nothing else. It doesn't power anything else. They are purely for redundancy only. And then we have a little shelf. So we're going into the networking stuff now. We have a Cisco 1800 router, a 800 series router, my little 1TB NAS, which is just used for storing operating system images on. So whenever I want to pull an image off onto a server, it just comes off of that little NAS there. And we actually have a Raspberry Pi, and that Raspberry Pi is used for monitoring, so it runs a little web server in Linux, and that runs a Cacti and a Observian monitoring system on it, so you can look at the network usage in real time, as well as logging other things. So it's good to see network usage when you're doing penetration testing or some kind of networking stuff. It's very useful to have those kind of things. And you just have some fiber converter there, so that's only 100 meg converter, but useful just testing things really. It's just sitting there chilling. And then inside there we have the 4 gig EMC fibre switch. So that is used for connecting all of the 4 gig cards to, as well as 1 or 2 other fibre modules on the network. So again, it's not because I can, it's because of the whole penetration testing and the storage over network, because it's not local, it's over network, so it needs the 4 gig speeds to be able to cope with the high network usage at times. And of course, when you're DDoSing yourself, you can always go over the 1 gig limit, so good for saturating ports as well. So the next thing we have here is a Cisco 2401 ASR. This is used for routing and basically learning the whole Cisco iOS thing. It's got 2 100 meg ports on it, which are here, and then it's got 2 gig fibre ports on it, which use the little Gbit cards. So the fibres come out there, and then, if I don't embarrass myself when it comes out, these are just little Cisco Gbits, if it focuses. So they just connect in there, and then it has a little flappy down thing which you can use, so it keeps the port closed. So we have them, and then let me just plug these in, otherwise I'll forget which way round they go, because you have a send and receive fibre cable. So it's all multi-mode fibre, being as it's going very, very short distances. So that will give me my 4 gig speeds, and they're all either OM3 or OM4. So if I ever decide to use them for 10 gig at some point, I can. The next thing up is a Nokia IP 380. This is purely because I wanted to have some kind of firewall to look at. It's only got 100 meg ports on it, so it's not used for anything other than testing out firewall things really, and it's hardly ever on. It's purely there more because I don't really want to put it anywhere else. That's connected to some other things on switching. And then we have, going up, is a Cisco 2851 ISR router. So it has the 2 gig ports here, and then it's got a little 100 meg add-in switch card for connecting things too, so you can do a little bit of switching stuff on it. And then it has a serial port as well, but I don't use that because I don't have anything else to connect to with serial. So that is basically used for routing and learning routing on the Cisco iOS software. So that's why that's there. It doesn't do anything else on the network. So it's good for sending things, say, from a server. If you DDoS the router, you can do QoS and things on that. So that's useful. And then we go up again, and there we have the D-Link. What is that? It's a DS12550G. And that is only a 100 meg switch, but it's a 48 port one. And the reason that's there is because anything that's 100 meg either connects to it on this one, so there's a VLAN set up on this one, and then the remote access cards for the servers come up on this one on a different VLAN. So they all then connect through the gig uplink ports on here. So we have a little fibre module there just in case, and then the copper uplinks to the next gig switch, and then we have the cable management arm for cable management. And then we go up to this. This is a 48 port gig switch with gig uplinks in fibre if I ever need them. This is a 3Com. I don't remember what the model number is, but there is a video of me somewhere with the 3Com thing doing link aggregation on it. So this is used for connecting all of the servers together and anything else that is on gig speeds. So as you can see now, we have these connections coming into the switch here, and they come in from a 48 port patch panel. And this is because on the back of this patch panel, on this 24 here, what we do is we bring all the connections up from the servers into the back there, and then you can just plug and play, really, so you can say connect port 21 to port whatever you on this one. So if you've got multiple VLANs set up on the switch, you can connect them to different VLANs easily, without having to move lots of cables about. You just connect it from the patch panel to somewhere else. And then on the other 24 ports on that patch panel at the top there, so these ones, we have the connections from anywhere else in the location. So we have my computer coming in, and other computers which are connected to the back of this patch panel, and then that patches down to another patch panel at the bottom of the rack at the back. So, and then they all come into a Netgear ProSafe 24 port switch, and then that is what stays on all the time. So that does all of the main connecting between the rest of the house and the rack. So anything that needs to stay on 24/7 goes into that one. We have a gig fibre uplink to the router for incoming and outgoing traffic on the internet, and then we also have another fibre network connection there to the Fibre Switch, just for the sake of it, really. So that is kind of it for the front. There's the general overview of the whole rack. And then around the back we'll show you some of the cabling or whatever. It's not really that exciting, but we have it anyway. So here you can see this is the bundle of cable that comes in from the servers, and some of the patches in the bottom of the patch panel. And then we also have the fibre cables which come up as well. So this is for management, and then this is all the other network connections. And they all just come up round like that. This is the incoming fibre connection for the internet, and then we have those power bars there as well as this being the fibre switch, and all of the cables are run up the side of the rack for power. And then we have the back there, so there's the back of the patch panel. As you can see, that's brought in fairly nicely, split into two. The top one being to the back of the patch panel of the rack, and then the bottom one being the servers. I'll try and show you slightly closer to here. So you have to read the colours on the back of the patch panel and then patch them in with a chrome tool. We have the back of the switches there, and the back of the Cisco routers, and that is about it really. So I hope you enjoyed this general overview of the whole rack setup for my lab, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, there's one other thing I forgot to mention. This isn't actually all the servers that I have. This is just the ones in the rack. But I actually have another 1950 stored in a data center. And that is, again, another top specs 1950, so 32 gigs of RAM, 2 quad-core processors, and 4 terabytes worth of storage on that thing. And that is on a fully resilient connection, and we have VLAN'd back to that server. So that is used for, apart from backups, it's used for different connections out for testing over more like a WAN connection between, like the Cisco routers and whatever you. So we have one of them as well, and that is quite useful really. It's not something that you would generally have for a lab setup, but I find it very, very useful to have another server on somewhere else 24/7, being able to do things. So I pay a fair amount for it, and that is purely because of probably the power consumption and the network usage on it as well. So it is just one of these servers, and well, yeah, I mean, that's what it's used for. So if anyone would like any more interesting, no, what we're trying to say, if anyone would like to know any more about this, or what's actually runs on them, or anything to do with the network, or just any other question that might not have mentioned in the video, then please leave a comment below, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions about this whole setup for a lab, and where I get the servers from, how I power them, things like that. If you've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to ask me, and I will see you guys in the next video.